I've really been missing live music.
Took your hand and led you from the floor. Was it pleasure, was it grieving that bound me wrapped and seething by your...
I've been missing all those great concerts. I've missed all the various and festive street fairs that we have here all summer long that celebrate our diversity as well as our joy that summer has once again returned. I miss our Fridays on Front, as well as the annual Vancouver Symphony in the Park and all that great free musical stuff. I miss the buskers on the sidewalk. And the little concerts of students showing off their chops. But most of all, I miss those really big music festivals with tons of people, all of us grooving together on the same thing. I miss all of that this summer. I began to think about the jazz festival that I usually go to, and that would have come and gone by now. I was ready to start going to Fridays on Front, watching the kids play their games, while Mom and Dad grabbed a beer. I wanted to return to dancing to some great music at Uptown Live. I'd been saving up my appetite for our huge food truck festival. But things changed, and quickly, once we knew this was going to be more than just a flu. This was a pandemic. That was when New Westminster began to see that things, heck, that life, were changing, and rapidly. Our summer was changing. You can imagine what that did for the folks who organize all these events.
I think it happened pretty quick. So mid-March, we were seeing businesses were starting to close. And at that point, we kind of thought it was going to be a temporary closure, something we were going to do for a few weeks, and then we could all bounce back and get into the swing of things. But I think it was about mid-April when we had a board meeting. And as we approached that board meeting, it was looking more and more apparent that, you know, the recommendation at first was going to be that we scale it down or that we change the way that we do it. And as the meeting approached, it became like quickly we realized, no, the recommendation is going to have to be that we cancel all live events. And then by the time that board meeting came around, there wasn't even a discussion. It was so clear, the mandate from the provincial health authorities and the city and everyone that we worked with, that there was just, 50 people was the maximum for gatherings at that time. And we certainly didn't fall within those numbers. So it was pretty clear at that point that we were going to have to completely change what the summer of 2020 was going to look like.
Well, we were all really disappointed this year that Uptown Live had to be canceled due to COVID-19. We made that decision fairly early on when it became very obvious that we weren't going to be able to bring together large crowds this summer in an outdoor space. And really, we were wondering, what we could possibly do, and our discussions with our sponsors, with Creative BC and the Canadian Live Music Association. We were really talking about, how we could pivot and maybe still do something and reach the goal of getting the industry working it again at a very difficult time.
But as the pandemic wore on, it became very obvious that the city needed to find something for all its people who needed to do more than just stay home. Uptown and downtown each came up with some interesting solutions.
What do we do? How are we going to still promote our businesses? How are we still going to put downtown New West on the map? And we had a desire to provide something for all those people. So we put our thinking caps on and we were able to do a couple of different initiatives. Self-directed, mostly online. And so when we were looking at what could we do with Fridays, we thought a scavenger hunt style of event would be a cool way to bring people downtown. So it's a series of questions that gets released every Friday at noon. It's all online, so you download it onto your phone. and it takes you through downtown New West. So it'll ask you questions where you need to go find the location. We got to figure out what we're talking about first, then find that location, get to that location, and then answer the question. So pretty simple concept, but fun. It gets people out. I think the feedback from people has been that they've discovered all sorts of things that they didn't know. We've got so much great public art and interesting little corners. So it was a good opportunity to show some of those to people who, weren't familiar with all the little different elements of downtown New West. And
we settled on producing the 7 live sessions at Massey Theatre, which is, an iconic landmark theater in New Westminster that we all love. And it was great to be able to involve them, get them working again. And so we produced 7 different sessions, and we put it together into a 2-hour broadcast, which aired on August 22nd. It's available for viewing on uptownlive.ca. And, we've certainly reached our goal of getting the BC music industry working again.
But what about when the weather gets cooler? Fall and winter might provide some real challenges for us here in New Westminster. And what about the next year? This will likely be still going on next year. Of course, some people were already thinking that way.
But yeah, moving ahead, I would say the fall is certainly a challenge that we're looking to, and trying to just now really wrap our heads around where we're going to be at come November, December, and what the holiday season could look like. And I don't think I'm quite there yet as to what we're going to do. That's going to take a while for us to shift back to being comfortable in tight, big groups again, I think. So
I also wouldn't rule out the fact that next year at an event like Uptown Live, where we would have several cameras out and we would shoot the entire main stage at Uptown Live in 2021 and live stream that out. So if people were uncomfortable coming to an event with a large number of people, they could stay home and watch Uptown Live 2021 online as well. So, I mean, the ticket prices for large, big act events in large venues are already high. I think people would be quite happy to spend generally the same amount of money, $150, to go to see somebody good outside where there's only 1,000 people, but you can, have a glass of wine, take it back to your seat, and even have events like that are socially distanced.
Yeah.
So,
I anticipate that, once COVID is, I guess if you could say over, whenever that will be, there's going to be a lot of art that comes out of it. We're already seeing that just, I think, on Instagram and different places, but certainly quite a number of artists here in the studio have created COVID-related art.
Like New West has always been a really tight-knit community, a super supportive community. But when something horrible like this happens, you really see the helpers shine. And if it was things from people delivering groceries to people or businesses helping each other out, we have a private Facebook group that with businesses we're connecting and helping each other figure out and navigate all these different grants and information. And they were really there for each other. And I think that, a strong community gets stronger through something like this.
But what about all the artists and vendors that I see at the street fairs? Some vendors, like Katarina that runs the local Sweet Legs outlet, are doing pop-ups or going online. You have to get creative in a pandemic. What about the artists and craftspeople I usually see at these street fairs? Do they still create and have a way to reach out to people? Do they still paint, make jewelry, create art? Luckily, here in New West, we've had a bi-weekly craft market going all this summer. It helps, but there are also other ways that the city is helping out. There's a new art project showing in downtown New West inside the now closed Anvil Center. It is from the Garden Gals, who are gardeners as well as artists. Through this show, they were able to encourage each other and inspire many, including me. So it seems that from the tiny sidewalk art on Front Street to the murals we see around town, art is still alive in New Westminster during this pandemic, especially at as well-known a location as the 100 Braid Street Studios. It seems that even something like a pandemic just can't keep this iconic collection of local artists and their studios down.
Well, it has been a huge challenge. So we started out with 57 artists at the beginning of COVID, and we are now down to 18. It's been a big learning curve, just like I think many other businesses. In the case of the studios, really the entire business is dependent on artists who rent space from us. Sure. And then we also do weddings and events. So all of those things, including our paint nights and our open mic nights, everything that we do here has been affected by COVID. It's been very, very difficult. A lot of artists have lost their jobs, and or as a professional artist, they're not able to, sell art. So we have had a lot of artists leave the studio, unfortunately, and it has affected everyone in each artist in a different way. Some artists I found are able to create art. In some cases, they will create art. They have created art about COVID. We have one artist who has really been at home for the entire time because he has a family member who is high risk. So he's been taking a photo out of his window every single day and then create art from that. I think there will be some artists who come through this by creating art about it. And then, for myself, I paint landscapes, and for me, I paint plein air. So getting out and going out into, the landscape and painting that's a real solace for me. It really has been. We're going to be starting paint nights, virtual paint nights, 3 nights a week. If people want to participate, they can pick up the paint. We have put it into a little kit. Then you can go to your home. You can get your glass of wine and then sit and paint. And so it's gone really well. I think the most wonderful scenario we had was a woman who wanted to spend some time with her mother, who was in Germany. And her mother was supposed to come here to New West for a visit. That, with COVID, wasn't going to happen. So they had a paint night with us, and they were able to interact with each other. The time was an issue, but they worked it out. And to be able to have facilitated that really meant a lot. For First Saturday Open Studio, we are the first Saturday of every month. We are open from 1 till 5 p.m. Not all of the artists are in their studios, but or someone from the studio is here. So if you see something in someone's studio, we can then open the door. You can go in and take it. And so people can come in and then, take a little tour through the studios. And there is enough spacing that if the artist is in their studio, you can be in the hallway, and that's for sure, enough distance apart. They can always come out, then you can go in and actually look at the art in their studio. So we've had quite a number. I would say that some of the most heartening stories, a couple who came in, they said that they usually go on holiday during the summer up north. They said this was not a year where they felt comfortable doing that, so they decided to purchase some art that would actually make them feel connected to nature.
But not all art is done alone. Some art, such as theater and music, especially if you're in a rock band, is collaborative. I love live music, and I'm really missing it. But I love theater too, though I don't go as much as I always intend to. But if I am missing it, I can imagine how much the performers must be missing it. Of course, being live performers, they adapted. They found solutions, at least until things open up again. But it hasn't been easy.
I am an installation and theatrical artist, a historian, a researcher, a nerd. What I mostly do, I work in theater. I'm a costume designer, mostly by trade. I also do hair and makeup. I've done set design, but it's been a while. I also worked disaster relief when I was younger, in my 20s. So when they started talking about pandemic, when they started talking about quarantine, I said, well, everything's going to be shut down this summer. That was not a surprise to me. That's the only way we're going to move forward. They're going to have to shut everything down. So it was simply a matter of when they were going to shut everything down, how soon they were going to do it, not if they were going to do it. And I think there was a lot of back and forth in my industry. Are they going to close? Is my show going to run? And every conversation I had, I kept saying to colleagues, oh, it's going to close. They're going to shut it down. We're all getting shut down. We're all getting shut down. And, there was a lot of, well, that's a bit fatalistic. Is it? No, it's not. It's a pandemic. They're going to shut it down. The fears amongst us all of when is it going to reopen? When are we going to work again? I think that's been the hardest thing to navigate, is just the real depression that's sort of like a wave of depression that's taken over the theater community, is because we all genuinely love our work. Half the fun of the theater is that it's collaborative art. You get a bunch of artists together with separate backgrounds and very different artistic points of view, and we all hash out this one piece of art that has many moving parts, and it is a complicated dance, and we're all of us very good at it. We're very good at cooperating and making our ideas work with somebody else's ideas. And that energy that comes in the production meeting when the lighting designer says, hey, I was thinking about that, the way that fabric moves. And I was talking to the sound guy, and he was saying the sound of that fabric. And we were wondering, what if we mic'd like on the hip? And then I go, hey, that's a great idea. And then suddenly we're buzzing, Or the set designer says, I saw the color of that crinoline, and I was thinking, or I say, hey, I noticed you had a collection of vases in the upstage, and I was thinking, and then suddenly we're buzzing, and that lovely feeling of, it's not quite the same when we do that. I've had digital production meetings. It's not quite the same as being in an in-person production meeting, having those conversations.
Like before COVID was very busy. We were playing lots going on, lots of shows, up until about March, I think it was, when we started having cancellations and pulling out of shows due to the uncertainty of COVID. So originally we actually pulled out while the shows were still scheduled. Some people were kind of negligent to it. I think at that point it hadn't fully set in. So some bands, I think, were staying on these bills, hoping that everything would be fine. But, we kind of pulled out for our own, personal health issues. We didn't want to risk anything. And in the end, all the shows did end up getting canceled, and venues eventually closed down, many of which have not reopened. Initially, we noticed some venues kind of closed right away. Others were like, no, we're still open. And then I think it was probably near the end of March where eventually it was like, okay, everything's shut down. And then that was it. And then since then we've kind of seen the wave of live streams and different streaming platforms pop up, and people have moved to that in the time being with the uncertainty of COVID and all.
It turns out that there are ways to still collaborate during a pandemic. You might have to get creative in your solutions on how you do it, but then again, maybe this is just another challenge. After all, isn't being challenged simply a part of being an artist?
I'm finding a lot of digital performances happening. There's always been digital performance, but now it's really sort of the main medium, isn't it? I joined a digital theater troupe on a whim. We're global. which makes setting up rehearsal times really fun. But there's a delight in that many of us were theater professionals, and we'd forgotten how much just fun putting on a play is. Just to put on a play. No pressure, no budgets, no deadlines, no patrons, no unions. We're just putting on a play and people are watching it, and that's it. And there's something really dazzlingly fun. It reminds you when you were, a kid just starting out and just learning about this magical world. But it's not just amateur digital performances that are happening. Professional theater companies are transitioning to digital seasons. You're getting professional digital performances. And I think the things that everyone likes to complain about with Zoom and Google Hangouts and these various digital platforms, they're the same kind of strange hiccups that you get from real physical in-your-face live performances, time delays and blackouts and issues with, anything can happen in a live performance. And I think that actually translates quite well to a digital medium. Anything could happen in a digital performance,
Yes, so we've kind of chosen to put our focus towards our latest album that we're working on and recording, mixing ourselves. So we've been kind of totally focused and dialed in on that while all this chaos is happening. Trying not to miss playing the live shows too much, but obviously we do, because that's what we're all about. We live to play the live shows. So we are fortunate. We have a kind of barn, man cave type facility that is able to still operate under the health and safety guidelines and all that. And it's a gigantic place, so we are able to be socially distanced and all that. I know a lot of other bands, kind of practice in a 12 by 12 room, so I kind of feel for them. And there's not a lot of other options out there really right now, so I think a lot of bands probably have kind of had to revert to transmitting ideas electronically. We're kind of used to working remotely anyways as a band, because we're kind of spread out. We all live different parts of the Lower Mainland, so we're kind of used to that aspect already, where we'll bounce ideas off each other through email, where we'll kind of record stuff. We'll all record stuff individually, send it back and forth. One guy might re-record everything at his house and then kind of send a demo out. So that's usually how we work and get ideas flowing. I think, obviously we've seen the rise of like the drive-in concerts and other, the Twitch streams and the other live performances. I know some venues now are doing like shows and then streaming the shows, obviously with no audience. I've kind of noticed that popping up lately as well. Mm-hmm. Some of like the bigger name venues, and obviously, I think that's a good idea, because we want to see the venues keep their doors open too, right? So if they can adapt and adjust to kind of keep going and make it through this.
But what will all this look like after? Is there hope for bringing back some of the live art we all crave next summer? Or is it too soon to even be thinking this way? Even creativity needs hope. Maybe especially so. If there's anything artists know how to do, it's looking to the future.
There are theater companies that will not survive. There are companies that just won't. And there are companies that won't, that it'll break our heart they didn't. And there are companies that won't, that we all knew were toxic as all get out, and we're kind of glad they didn't. And it's not going to just come down to money. Money isn't going to be the only reason this theater company survived versus that theater company. It's going to be, how are they adapting to what we are all going through. I think there's going to be a bit more of a dichotomy in theater arts practice moving forward for a little while. And right now, you're seeing a lot of, no, throw that out the window, let's try something else.
There's a lot of venues that have been closing down permanently that we've played and many other bands have played and cut their teeth at, and now we're kind of seeing them close their doors, which is disappointing. On the flip side, once this is all over eventually, I think we will see new venues pop up too and kind of go from there. Well, all the bands that make it through this period, I think everyone's going to be eager to play, and I hope to see a lot of shows and tours, and especially big name acts. I hope to see everything rescheduled and you know, a good turnout at shows. I hope people get out and go support their local bands and watch live shows and all that. Fans and the bands, we've been deprived. There's going to be an influx of new music, which I think is positive, especially, you know, bigger bands that I like to listen to. And, you know, everyone's kind of, well, we're not playing live, so let's write more music. So that's exciting, obviously. And I think, you know, that'll be great once it's over, because then everyone's going to be kind of like, hey, look, we got something new we want to play, and we want to play our stuff. So I think there's going to be a lot of hype due to that. And I think any band that, you know, kind of survives the COVID phase will obviously be coming out with new material to show off and play. So I think that's exciting for me, for sure.
In situations like this, there's always a lot of opportunity for change. And yeah, it's just a matter of kind of shifting and pivoting a little bit. And I know the community, New Westminster community, is so supportive of the studio. And I think maybe that's an amazing thing that has come from this, is that people have realized what's truly important to them. And art, to get through a crisis, is a very powerful thing, and a lot of people have actually recognized that.
Artists who are creating right now are very much under the shadow of plague, and I think at least going off of the history of our industry, plague, the aftermath of plague closures have always affected what the shows are that come when the theater comes back. I think people are going to want to see a lot of happy things. I think, and I don't mean that means that they want mindless things, but I think people want to laugh. I think people want to be in a room with other people smiling, not necessarily lighthearted, because I think we are all learning you don't have to have a light heart to be joyous, that joy can come from, you know, strange places. But I think that we're going to see a lot of theater that is centered on that sort of concept. And I'm looking forward to it. It should be interesting.
So while we may not have a return to the big outdoor events and concerts by next summer, it may not be a completely silent summer in 2021. Event organizers will have time to plan for the kinds of get-togethers we can have, though perhaps in a more limited way. You can bet that musicians and performers will take the time to create new and exciting material and find ways to get those ideas in front of an audience. After all, it is not only us, their audience, that is missing that live connection. It is what we all miss, performers and audience alike. But there is hope, and hope always springs eternal within any creative heart. Hope for new ideas, hope for a new world after all of this, and most of all, hope for more connection. With that hope, we look forward to a new year and new ways where we will all celebrate the warmth of the sun again together. And when we do, I hope to see all of you there. Be kind to one another and stay safe.